This is my Python tutorial for artists. Welcome to this new tutorial. Approach to learning will be more experimental than formal. So the tutorial should be a lot different than most tutorials that you see, and probably better because it's going to be less formal and you don't have to necessarily type in code and all that. I'll provide code in either the comments, or I'll provide you a download link for this particular notebook that I'm using. You can find documentation. Well, before I get into that, let's take a look here. So what I've done is I've just downloaded 2.90.1, and to find documentation you go to help here, and for Python it'll be the Python API reference. You can pull that up and look at it if you want, but anytime you need to find information about particular commands, that gets down into real specifics about commands. Most of the time I don't use it. So we'll need to go to the scripting window, which is way over on the right here, and then first thing I'm going to do is this here is the text editor. I'm going to go up to the corner right here, get our plus symbol, hold down the left mouse button, drag this down so it's about equal right here, and then see this little down arrow? You're not going to be able to do anything with this little window until you go click that down arrow, and then take your plus symbol from over here and drag it into here. That's going to make us one long display of information. The information is right here in case you need to get to it. You'll click on that to switch to information. This right here is the console, which is located right there. This is just a 3D view, and this is the text editor. That's right here. I'm not going to use that a whole lot. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to show you how to put in a comment. Actually, let's take this and let's paste these into the console. So I've got x equals 3, y equals 6, and then we'll just do a little experiment here. So x, which is 3 divided by 6, gives you 0.5. y divided by x should equal 2. And then let's create ourselves a little, what would be a vector. A vector gives you an x coordinate, a y coordinate, and a z coordinate. I don't have the z coordinate in, I'm just putting in a 0 for it right now because I want to do something else to show you what happens when something goes wrong. You'll get an error, and my bet is that even if you're new to coding, you can determine what the problem is. Basically what it's saying is z isn't defined. So let's define z. Let's say z equals 0. And then to go back to this that threw the error before, you can press your up arrow. Let's go up twice and then run it. And as you can see, it now works. Fix the problem. Alright, and then we're going to let's take this command. And let's see. So what it's doing here is it's saying translate whatever's selected. Of course, we want to have that selected. And the value is v, which is right here. And essentially what that is v for x is going to be equal to 3, for y is going to be equal to 6, and for z it's just going to be 0 because we set it to 0 here. Alright, so it translated it using that command. The reason why I did that is I wanted to show you something else. When you're doing coding, one of the most helpful things that you can do to find out what the command is to do a particular thing is if you already know how to do it otherwise, you can just go in here, go to create cube, it'll create the cube, and down here it'll give you the command right here that did that. This is what created that cube. So then you can take that command and come on, and then we can just paste it in here and see what we've got. So bpy ops mesh primitive cube add size equal to, let's change that. And this is how you learn. You learn by playing around with it, changing different things. And do we want to, I don't think we want to make it on 0. Let's say, let's change x to -4 and go back to Blender and run that. So by changing the size down to 1, we created a smaller square, and by changing x to -4, it made it go in the negative x direction. Negative x, well, x in itself is going to be the red line. So any value you change for x is going to change along the red line. Any value you change for y is going to change along the green line. And anything that you change for z is going to be an up-down direction. It normally doesn't show that other than right there. So that's kind of fun because you can experiment around with commands. And let's move on to Booleans. So what I'm doing is I'm taking t and making it equal to true, and note that when you're creating a Boolean, you want to use a capital letter in the beginning of true, and then we're using f and making it false. Now we're going to copy paste an if statement into here. There's going to be 3 parts of the if statement. The if part, and then whatever the comparison is. So it's basically saying if t equal, that's what's used when you're comparing, equals true, and then the last part of the statement is going to have a colon after it. You can't forget that colon or else it won't work. And then below it, anything that you want to run when this runs. If it's true, it's got to be true in order to run this. And when I hit enter, you notice that it indented. So basically what it's saying is if you want to run something else, you can go print, I don't know, hit enter, then hit enter again. And because that's true, it goes ahead and prints it out. Now we're going to jump to the false statement. And I'm going to have you guess what result are we going to get. Is it actually going to print anything, or is it just going to not print something? It's basically just going to do a comparison. Is f equal to false? It printed it because f is equal to false. And actually, let's do something. I want to show you. I think it'll do this. Let's see. Alright, yep. So it's basically given an output saying f is equal to false, and that's what we did. We set it equal to false up here. So it is actually resulting in a true statement, so that runs. And then we're going to do something else here. We already know that t is equal to true. So I think, and you probably think, that this will actually print out. So it does. Now, what do you think is going to happen when we run this? It's basically saying if false, print rah. And as you notice, it didn't print anything. And that's because it's looking for a true statement, and we know f is set to being equal to false, so that's not going to run. And then I want to get into last time I did this in edit mode, but I think I'm going to hold off on that. Basically what happens when you start creating objects in edit mode, if you create a cube in edit mode and then you create another cube in edit mode, it's going to be the very same object. You can like select one and move it, and the other one will move with it usually. If you're in object mode, there's going to be a difference because whenever you're in edit mode, it's more. It allows you to edit vertices and stuff like that. So actually, if you selected one, it wouldn't move everything else. You'd have to be in object mode for that to happen. So you get different behavior depending on what mode you're in. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here, say for example we don't know that this last command exists. We just want to see what we can do at this point. So we have bpy.ops.mesh. Basically what that is kind of like a tree of command libraries. And then if we want to see what commands we can do after mesh, we can hit tab and you'll see a whole slew of them. And we were using primitive underline cube underline add. And you'll notice right here, primitive cube add. Then we can take that, copy it. I think I got a little extra more than I needed there. So let's get rid of that space because it won't work like that. Now, we want to see what happens if we hit tab again because we want to know what we would need to put in the parentheses. And honestly, from what I've seen, it doesn't always do a good job at this. And I'll show you why in a second. Alright, so here it says size. Calculate UVs equals true. Inner edit mode equals false. Align equals world. Location, that's what's going to set the location of the object. Cube. So this one actually does come out pretty good. It actually gives you the rotation too, I believe. Rotation also in scale. So, I don't know, let's see. This one doesn't have scale in it. Let's take let's change this to about 5 and run it. I wrote down on it, didn't I? Alright, so that was the Z direction. Now there's something else down here I want to show you. Probably one of the most frustrating things that I ran into when I was coding was modes. Trying to deal with, like, a lot of times you'll run a command and it's going to say that it's not going to do it because it's not in the right mode. So, and then you're like, well, what mode should I be in? and it doesn't really tell you. So whenever you run into a situation where it's saying you're not in the right mode, one of the things that you can do is the command will always have some type of thing where it says mode equals. So what you can do is you can take this and you can make it actually error out. That's unusual because usually it'll give you the... There. Maybe I just had too short of a sentence or something wasn't quite right. But basically, to find out what modes you have available for the command, you can just go in here and edit this a little bit so it doesn't give you the right information, doesn't give it the right information, so it errors out. And then when it errors out, it's going to give you the mode. I should say the modes that are available. So then you get this. You have object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, and then all this other stuff. So say this is the command for changing mode. We'll copy that. We'll paste it over here. And then let's change it to... Oh, I spelled that wrong, didn't I? To edit mode. And once I hit enter, you're going to see it change here from object to edit mode. Alright, so then it changed to edit mode. So probably the main idea I want to show you, or that I showed you here, is first finding out what mode you have to work with. And you're going to be doing a lot of switching between object mode and edit mode. The difference is with edit mode, you can take these and, let's see here, tools. And with your code, you'll actually be doing this. You'll be like changing the coordinates here. And as you can see down here, it transforms the coordinates. So you can actually get the code for doing that. Whereas in object mode, you're going to be transforming the whole thing. And you're probably already familiar with that if you've done modeling. But what you're going to find out is, like, say if you want to do something mathematically using Python, then you can use a lot of this stuff to learn how to code it. So actually most of my learning that I've done is, if I know how to do something in normal Blender without doing the coding, then I can copy it and get the code that or get the command that I need to do, and that'll help you a lot. As far as reference goes, it's good, but it's not perfect. For example, with these modes, there's a lot of different code. Like, let's see down here, there's something else. Alright, so this is something right here that works in edit mode, so I'm going to switch this to edit mode again, and then paste this in. And now maybe I don't want to do face, maybe I want to see what else there is, so I'm going to do that same trick. I'm going to change this right here, hit enter, and there we go. This is what we've got for our selections. So then I can just like arrow up and go in here, say I want to change, let's do edge, E-D-G-E. Alright, so then it's moved to the edge mode up here. So basically what you're doing is a lot of your commands, you're just using the same, there's like a parallel between, I guess you could say, two universes. One universe is where you're manually doing this up here in the 3D mode, swapping from like here to here, but you can also do it in code, and that can save you a lot of time once you decide what you want to do. Like if you want to create 3 boxes 3 spaces apart, you know, you can do that. you'll have to learn like a little bit more, but I don't want to go into that because the video is already kind of long in the first tutorial. I don't want to go into that. But the main lesson that I wanted you to remember is that whenever you run into this situation where there's mode problems, where it'll say you're in the wrong mode or whatever, and you want to find out what modes are available, you always want to use that little trick. And that, as I said, that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I ran into when I was doing coding, so I wanted to teach that to you in this particular module. And thanks you for watching, and I'll be back with a tutorial later on. Thank you.